Who are the players you need to be drafting and putting on your FFPC Playoff Challenge 2 rosters? Who are the fades that you want to stay away from because their stay in the postseason will not be long? And what are the proper things to do to handle your roster to build a $100,000 winner? That and more discussed on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight, plus the runner-up and winner of $200,000 in the FantasyPros Championship in his first and only FFPC team ever. Jarell Ford is going to swing on in tonight to talk about how he built that team, what it was like drafting his first high-stakes team with the FFPC, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men that need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, one Ferrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, we've got a lot planned for you for the playoff challenge. We're going to talk about the Texans. Joe Mixon, Dalton Schultz are going to pop up. We're also going to talk about Kyron Williams and Tyler Higbee with the Rams. And we'll get into some offseason stuff, including what the Saints are going to do and what you should be doing with the Saints in drafts in 2025 as well. Plus, Jarell Ford, a guy who 5 months ago never played in the FFPC. Fast forward to 19 weeks later or whatever it is, and he's won $200,000 in his only FFPC team. Going to be fun to talk with him as he was the runner-up in the Fantasy Pros Championship competition this year, coming this close to winning a $1 million grand prize. That and your emails answered coming up later on in the show. If you want to connect with us on X, do so at hsffhour. I'm at Eric Balkman. Check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com, including some online drafts that are already open and filling up. I just joined my first two for the season at the KFFSC. Excited to get that thing going underway. Plus, if I remember, I'll make a special announcement about what the FFPC is doing after the divisional kickoff, a divisional challenge kickoff hits at 4:30 Saturday afternoon. We got some plans and big announcement coming up on Sunday. Not a big announcement, but an announcement coming up on Sunday. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com, facebook.com/hsffhour. If you have any questions for us, send them in as soon as possible. Try to get to all the chat room questions, X posts, and emails in the fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer, my best friend Bryce, and our producer and mutual friend Rob. We got James Hicks hanging out in the YouTube chat. Good evening, Balky, Ferrell, and Oinker. Oinker's right here saying hello tonight, and I'm sure that will not be the last appearance we have. Tom Smith, happy Friday, fellas, and Oinkers. And he's also pointing out one bullet and a huge win. Boom, that's crazy good. It is crazy good, crazy lucky. And the question I'd be asking myself, and I'm not going to bring this up with Jarell when he comes on, maybe if you would have had two teams, you would have won first and second, and you'd be a millionaire in the FFPC. You never know. Certain things are possible here. And if you think that your season of winning is over in the 2024-2025 season, it's not. We still have another big contest going on with lineups locking at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow afternoon, right before the Texans and the Chiefs kick off. That is the FFPC Playoff Challenge 2. We actually have two contests going on right now. There's no draft or salary cap. Just choose the 8 players and watch them ride through the playoffs. Both contests the exact same as far as format and scoring. The only difference, we have a $35 one where you can enter and win up to a $25,000 grand prize. We also have a $200 entry contest where you will be eligible for a $100,000 grand prize. So check that out, myffpc.com. As I look at it right now, I am looking at the $35 challenge just crossed the 50% mark. and we still have, I would say, about 55% of the teams open in the playoff challenge 2 at the $200 level. So I'm sure that we are not going to reach capacity in either one of these contests. And in fact, we're probably going to fall short, maybe quite a bit short. You never know. So your chances to win are going to be heightened because all prizes are guaranteed. Once we announce it, that's it. No changing it. No moving it up. No moving it down. Cannot do that. So whatever teams we get, all prizes are guaranteed. So make sure you're registering for that. Some good ROI in that for sure. myffpc.com, myffpc.com. I've waited long enough. Let's bring him on. You know him as the commish of the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. The guy who has co-hosted this show for many years. Bring him on right now, Mr. Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, good evening. Happy Friday. How are you?
Balky, good evening. And I'm accused of being the relentless and endless salesman, but with Jarell, you come in and say, Jarell, if you'd had 2, you could have finished first and second. But that's hard.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Well, we had Cullen Hoffman came on this show. Appleton's own Cullen Hoffman came on here last year, and he won first and second in the FFPC playoff challenge, the $35 contest. That's tough to do. Winning first and second in a season-long contest over the course of months, nearly impossible to do. But we'll never know. Maybe Jarell Ford would have done it.
And maybe he would have. And I tell you what, your outreach to fill the deuce of playoff number 2, I'm there. I'm joining my teams tonight, and I request everyone to join in. So it's 8 players to take you the rest of the way. It's going to make the balance of this season most exciting.
Yeah, and I think there's probably like a misconception on this that since there's only 8 players, there's only so much you can do. No, there's still a lot you can do. From trying to figure out which teams are going to win these final 7 games, and then to figure out which player. I was listening to I think it was the Stealing Bananas podcast earlier this evening, and it was Ben Gretsch and Sean Siegel talking about how a few years ago in this competition they were this close to winning the $100,000. Why didn't they? Well, when everybody was picking Saquon Barkley for the Giants, they went with Richie James. And Richie James and Daniel Jones just missed on a deep crossing pattern over the middle where he would have easily ran into the end zone for a big play and a big touchdown. He ended up only finishing 3 points behind Saquon Barkley. So Barkley was the correct Giant to own. However, he catches that pass. Richie James is the correct Giant to own, and Siegel and Gretsch win $100,000. So we're talking about things like this, just weird, fluky stuff that can happen, and you never know. Something like that sometimes can go your way too, and you might walk away with a 6-figure grand prize. So
it's truly a game of inches, Balky. And we called out last week, and we didn't get a lot of support. But we called out that you want to play Nico Collins over your Chargers receivers because you're likely to get an extra game. And not only did Nico have another superlative example of his skill set, but he'll play again in Kansas City. And I'm afraid that we cannot predict another Houston victory this weekend. But we can say that in this weekend's group of teams, it's pretty chalky, don't you think?
Yeah, that's the way I'm looking at it. You and I were talking earlier today, and I said, well, in fact, I was on Sirius XM on, was that Tuesday or Wednesday? And I think it was Tuesday. And I said, the Rams are beating the Eagles this week. It's going to happen. And then you and I were talking today, and now I've kind of come off that a little bit, and I think the Eagles are going to win. It's all leading up to that big Bills Ravens game on Sunday evening. That's the coin flip game. That's the game we really don't know what's going to happen. And Ferrell, knowing the NFL, those first 3 games will probably be nail biters right down to the final whistle, and then the Sunday night game will probably be a blowout. But this is just what's so fun and so maddening about this league, and that's why we love it so much.
And I've looked. I just know there's football this weekend. I can't tell you who is playing, and I just know because I'm not going to miss any of it. I'm not going to say, I want to be there for that one more than I want to be there for this. No, I'll just be in front of the TV at the appointed times, and there'll be football, and I'll be happy about it. I think that one of the living here in Louisville, Kentucky, football fans of the kind of football people that we have, that we know from fantasy football, the kind of people we know from the football industry, and you especially with the media, you take all the media people here in Louisville, Kentucky, we have a special affinity for Lamar Jackson, and everyone expects Baltimore. I think everyone was stunned that Baltimore started as a favorite or started as an underdog and isn't a bigger favorite now. And it's a fascinating story to get a game prior to the Super Bowl that really might have the two best teams playing in it for that weekend, if that makes any sense. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. And I want to kick things off and tell you this right now, because you don't have the schedule memorized. I do. And the first game is 4:30. It's Texans at Chiefs. That's the way we're kicking it off. And I think we get a little bit of a bonus here for anybody playing in the playoff challenge who was worried about Joe Mixon. You can wait till inactives come out 90 minutes before the game to find out whether you're going to put him on your roster or not as your Texans representative. Jordan Schultz, who covers the NFL for Fox Sports, has reported that Mixon is indeed expected to play against the Chiefs. Ian Rappaport said this morning on the NFL Network that the ankle issue is not major. And Schultz's report obviously makes us feel very warm and fuzzy about Mixon trotting out there. He was added to the injury report after what we think was an ankle injury that suffered in practice on Wednesday. Did not practice yesterday. Officially questionable for today's game. And if you're trying to figure out which Texan to pick and you don't want to go Collins, even though the game script should line up with a big Collins day, we know the Chiefs corners on the outside are pretty good. And maybe they're double teaming Collins, and it's going to be on guys like John Mechie and Dalton Schultz to make plays. But I think that's what it comes down to, Ferrell. If you don't want Collins, are you simply going with Mixon? Can we make a strong case for Dalton Schultz here as well? I think the obvious play is Collins, but I think the decision on winning the 100K, a little bit more nuanced here if you want to go away from the chalk.
It is nuanced, but the only way that Houston advances is Collins has a big game. And Collins could have a less than average game and still outscore all his teammates. And this is just the boat that you don't want to miss. Now, if you want to start, there's plenty of teams. The Philadelphia has a great running back, but you can argue at other positions. Kansas City, take your pick between the quarterback and the tight end. Buffalo, again, if you don't play that quarterback, I don't know who you play. We could go on like this all night. But at the Texans, Collins is just an elite premier player. So let's don't overthink it.
Yeah. Think long, think wrong, right? And that's what it comes down to. This you can. Is it boar's head? The meats, the deli meats or whatever they do. They always say compromise elsewhere. Ferrell. So then the tagline for Nico Collins in the playoff challenge too. Nico Collins, compromise elsewhere, which is what we'll do, and you'll have to do. Maybe you could compromise with the Rams. This is another pivot point that I think is interesting. Tyler Higbee, limited in practice yesterday. I believe he was limited today. I'd have to double check on that with a chest injury. He left that wild card game against Minnesota he was coughing up blood, went to the hospital. Sean McVay said almost immediately after the game that he expects Higbee to play against the Eagles, and they're going to need him. It's going to be all hands on deck for the Rams. A team that is going to be playing in some cold weather, potentially some snow in Philadelphia against maybe the best defense in the NFL right now. I don't know. They're so good with the young players they have playing in the secondary and then those big bullies up front. The Nakobe Dean injury at linebacker is going to be a pretty big loss for him. But at the same time, Philly does have a big advantage in this game. Ferrell, if you're predicting a Rams loss, are you still playing Nakua, or do Kyron Williams and Tyler Higbee enter the conversation for you?
Well, Higbee, no. And what a wonderful player he is. And as soon as he hit elite status in his career, his body has turned on him. And it's just been tough for him. And the Rams have suffered from everything that we suffered from in playing fantasy football. They They had guys that looked like they might stepped up, but not really. As a tight end pool is very, very shallow. So, with your Rams, you're tempted to say that Cooper Kupp had such a non-factor in the last victory that they're going to try to balance that out and keep him involved. Nakua looks like he's playing football at a different level from everyone else. And so here we are again with a team that we expect to lose with a premier receiver. And there's a lot of guys in this contest. You say, oh, well, everybody will play Nakua. Not really. Because there's a lot of guys that have made fantasy dollars and have enjoyed tremendously riding in Kyron Williams every week as their starting running back. And they'll do the same thing in this contest, I think. So you're not going to find the percent of ownership on Puka as high as you think it might be.
And you could be right on that too. The thing is, when you have such a dynamic player, I mean, Ferrell, we're talking about Nakua being, I mean, how high would you draft if you were playing in the KFFSC next year or the FFPC? Is he a top 5 pick in redraft leagues?
Oh yes, football is life, man. He's that guy.
Yeah, okay, he is that guy. And Higbee, is he a Western Kentucky guy?
Yes, sir. WKU Hilltopper.
Yeah, good for
out of Florida. Grew up down there in Florida. Grew up. Florida athlete.
Yeah. He was a guy I was excited about. I still think he can make plays, but you're right. The injuries are starting to limit his ceiling a little bit and what he can do going forward. NOLA.com had this report about Derek Carr. This is the only team we're talking about here in this first segment that did not make the playoffs. If the Saints decide to release Derek Carr before the start of the new league year, it would create a $50 million dead money cap hit. And by the way, they already have a $32 million dead money Marshawn Lattimore cap hit. If you designate him as a post-June 1st release, that would be better. But the entire $51.5 million cap hit would remain on the books until June, and then that would leave this team more than $60 million over the 2025 cap with almost no flexibility here. If you restructure Derek Carr's contract, hey, that helps. But that means he's going to have a $69 million cap number in 2026. This is a lot of numbers. Let's boil it down to this. Saints have a lot of problems, Ferrell. They are in a boatload of trouble to try to field a competitive team in 2025 and, quite frankly, 2026. They've been kicking this can down the road for years. My question to you is, when we launch drafts, KFFSC is going to have drafts going here shortly, as well as the FFPC. We know the talent there. Like Alvin Kamara, he's getting up there in years, but yet the dude still keeps producing. Top 5, I want to say, PPR running back this year. Chris Olave, a super talented player. Obviously, concussions limited him this year. But you look at this team now. Do we just have to start fading the Saints, because it's really difficult to see this team not only being successful but just scoring points in 2025?
They flash and then they disappear, and I think this team drafts well, so it's probably time to draft a quarterback. There'll be a lot of changes in the front office, and just because you don't change titles doesn't mean that the responsibilities within that organization change. But they've done a good job going out and drafting through all 7 rounds. I think they can quickly add complementary players, but they're to bring in at the minimum salary structure that will give them some flexibility. But I think they move on from this quarterback, take the hit, and get over it.
So do you think he's going to be the quarterback for the Saints in 2025?
I don't know. But if you ask the question, Ferrell, if you're running the Saints, are you going to stick with Derek Carr? And my answer would be no.
The answer is
I'm going to trust my staff to go out. And my answer would be no, I don't necessarily think so. But I might have to go look at some of these rookie quarterbacks and decide if one of them can be that guy.
The team that I want to talk about here next is the Detroit Lions, who were not in action this past week because they got the bye. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC. And boy, did they need it, because they're going to have David Montgomery back in this game. He's not even on the injury report. He's playing against the Commanders. This, according to Adam Schefter earlier today. He was a full participant in practice all week, and he is going to be good to go. he got 16 touches per game during the regular season, and the defense that they're playing on Saturday night is a team that has struggled to contain these types of between the tackles, bruising running backs with a little bit of juice, which is what Montgomery has. The thing that I think players have been asking themselves all week, and the thing that we're trying to figure out for the playoff challenge too, is how does this affect Jahmyr Gibbs, a guy who won a lot of people fantasy titles at the end of the regular season when Montgomery wasn't playing. You don't want to go away from that. I know there's a lot of people, the school of thought here is this is it for the Lions, right? They have to win. They got to win the Super Bowl. The stars are aligning here. Well, how do you do that? You make sure that your best players are touching the ball as much as they can, right? You're not going to save these guys anymore. The grind of the regular season is behind you. Now it's all about running on adrenaline, playing your best football. So they still should give Gibbs the most of the touches, right? Which would make Gibbs a solid choice for the playoff challenge. However, the part that we have to kind of figure out, we know Montgomery's going to be involved, but Ferrell, how much is he going to be involved going forward against the Commanders and the remainder of the postseason for Detroit?
I think his involvement probably won't approach those number of regular season touches, although it could. I think his involvement moves the chains, gives another factor for defenses to deal with. You might get less Gibbs, but you might get more efficient Gibbs, more explosive Gibbs, more fourth quarter Gibbs. So it does not – Montgomery returning does not make me want to move off certain Saints, especially Gibbs. So he's a fantastic weapon, and I think having him back on the field is good for the team and good for all the players. So, that's the toughest thing about the challenge is picking out your one Lion. Maybe as you said to Mr. Ford, maybe you should just have two teams.
Speaking of Mr. Ford, Jarell Ford, we're trying to get him in right now. Technical difficulties.
What's Jarell up to?
I know it's probably a technology error right now that we're trying to
figure out. I suffered from the hotel room in Planet Hollywood.
Yeah,
they got all day.
So what did you end up doing that? Now, because you were planning on doing the show, did you guys just hit the town then after that?
We went to dinner early, and I threw the computer across the room. I did get my deposit back, though, so, a fit of anger. And then I threw Fenton over the room. That's a whole other story.
No,
he was my tech specialist that night.
At least you're getting your cardio in, throwing computers.
Yeah, I get a lot of a little left, a little right.
Speaking of the Lions, Bill Hollywood hanging out, and he is of the opinion that Gibbs is going to be a stud against the Commanders. He thinks St. Brown might struggle a little in this game, and I think that it's worth talking about, Ferrell, when you talk about a squad in the Commanders that have, again, really not put the kibosh on any opposing running backs for the majority of the season. They've had a few good games, but if Detroit doesn't have to throw it, does that mean they won't? In other words, like if they're just going to give the ball to Montgomery and Gibbs out of the backfield and manufacture a bunch of touches for them, 15 or 20 of them each, and then that's all they need, do they need to get St. Brown involved? And my answer to that is I sometimes I feel like the Lions are just going to do what Ben Johnson is just going to do whatever he wants, right? He's just going to throw the ball. He's going to run trick plays. He's going to do whatever he can to keep the points coming and keep the yardage being chewed up. So St. Brown, I guess maybe he's not the focal point for the Lions this week, but I still think he's going to be a big deal this game.
The Lions offense will use absolutely all of their tools, and he is a tool. Now, he has had some moments that look like he has perhaps lost focus, and he's had a couple balls that I thought he should have caught that he didn't. But there's nothing I can say about it. There's no reason to expect that player to do less. Now, at some point, do they take their foot off the gas and save a little for the next week? Perhaps. Is 30, 40, 50 points. I'll tell you what, if I'm playing against this quarterback, I'm just going to try to score as many damn points as I can.
Yeah.
I want to keep the ball out of his hands, and I'm not going to, 2 touchdown, 17-point league, even with playing at home, doesn't mean a lot to me. I'm not going to let my guys get in any type of malaise or third quarter celebrations. Let's just play for 4 quarters, and let's put up a massively complete and impressive game, because that's what you're going to have to do in this game and all the games going forward to bring that Super Bowl title to the Detroits.
Michael Kenzel brings this up too. He thinks that this is going to be a big Amon-Ra St. Brown game because the Commanders are going to score enough to keep the Lions balanced on offense. And the total for this game, Ferrell, I don't know if we talked about this at all. 55.5, 55. What is this? A Big 12 game that has crept into the NFL playoffs? It blows my mind. I think this is the biggest total that we have seen all season long in the NFL. Certainly one of the biggest totals we've seen in the NFL playoffs in probably the last half decade. It's a crazy amount of points. And I don't want to say Detroit has a bad defense. They've been so banged up, but I think that changes once Hutchinson gets back. They need him back, obviously, and it's probably not going to be coming back to the Super Bowl. But I think that's interesting to point out here, too, is we're trying to figure out the Lion to play in the playoff challenge, too. And we're looking at it kind of like tunnel vision this weekend, because this weekend matters most. You got to win this weekend to move on. But it could be a case where Laporta scores, St. Brown scores, Montgomery scores. Everybody could score a touchdown in this game, and they all end up being big plays. And the way we find out who the correct Lion is, it's what happens next round. It's what happens in the Super Bowl if they're fortunate to get that far.
I think, I think the Commanders are going to put some points on the board too. When I look at it at 55, it doesn't sound like so many points. Mike just posted a score for the first quarter. No, he didn't. He said, wait a minute, what's he doing? Hey, Balky, would you put my phone number in the chat for Mike to give me a call? It looks like he
Do you want me to put it in there?
Well, sure, everybody has it. Anyway.
I guess we've revealed it on the show plenty of times.
Yeah,
right?
It doesn't matter. All right. When it rings, I answer it. That's what it's all about.
It's okay. I got it right here. All right.
You got it right there.
Yeah. We're posting Ferrell's phone number in the chat right now. This is so Michael Kenzel and anybody else who wants to get involved at the KFFSC. If you don't want to go to KFFSC,
we're running out of spots. We just, Mike's going to call right after. Mike's going to call right after 11.
Yeah, there you go. So we do have Jarell here. We have to alleviate one final concern. Bottom of the hour here in about 2 or 3 minutes, we should have Jarell coming on. In the meantime,
I love it.
2 to 3 minutes. Yeah, we'll have him.
I wonder if Fenton's helping him with his tech stuff. I wonder if that's what's going on.
Why is Fenton catching strays on the show tonight?
Well, Fenton set me up with his computer that didn't have a camera that worked, and then it didn't connect with the Fenton sort of told me that it wouldn't work, and he was right. And I missed the show, and I really missed talking to that winner. Our man from Appleton.
Oh yeah, Mike Melberg. Yeah, for sure.
Appleton is warm spot in my heart for that city, Balky, for so many reasons.
It's warm out tonight too. I was out walking earlier tonight before the show. 40+ degrees. It was balmy. Loved it. It was not indicative of what mid-January is normally like here. What was the team I wanted to bring up? Oh, okay. You kind of touched on this earlier with the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
What do you do if you think Baltimore wins that game and you structure your playoff challenge 2 lineup with, Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, not Josh Allen? Let me leave that open for a possibility here. What do you do if you think the Bills are losing? Do you still put Josh Allen in at your quarterback, or what's the pivot? Because James Cook is going to be running into a lot of brick walls against Baltimore's rush defense. Dalton Kincaid has been spotty at best this year, and Khalil Shakir, with all apologies to him, I feel like his ceiling is something even I could jump over. So there's not, outside of Josh Allen here, Ferrell, there's not a lot to like. If you're projecting the Bills to lose this game, how do you handle the bill that you're putting into your playoff challenge 2 roster?
I'm going to play Shakir and hope that the game for the Bills is a chase position game. I like Shakir making difficult catches. I like Shakir in cold weather. If you remember, he's a California kid, but he's a Boise State player. I like the toughness of the player. I like his ability to change directions, even in the cold and in the snow. And so that's the player that I'm going with on a one and done basis. There's certainly nothing wrong with Allen, but we don't think, when I say we, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I think you and I, Balky, we don't think that Baltimore will be removed from the playoffs and that they will survive. And I think one of the ways that you've got to be successful in these contests is you must have a quarterback in the Super Bowl. And so that's where I'm going. So, it's an interesting buffet of quarterbacks in the AFC. So that's what makes this contest so fun.
Can you imagine?
That's why you should play three, like I mentioned earlier. You should play three teams.
Can you imagine if the Bengals wouldn't have screwed up the first part of their season, Ferrell, and we could have a potential Final Four in the AFC of Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow? God, that would have been great.
The Bengals needed a CFL schedule. They needed an 18-game season this week.
Well, their defense, with all apologies to the CFL, their defense played at a CFL level for the majority of the season. And that's the reason why they ended up not making into the playoffs. Let's do a couple of emails here while Jarell gets situated. Mike in East Alton, Illinois. Need your help, guys. Is Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jahmyr Gibbs the right line to play in the FFPC Playoff Challenge? We kind of talked about this. No, that I apologize. That is from last week. I apologize. That is Mike from East Alton, Illinois. That was last week. Tim in Denver, Colorado. Let's get to the correct.
Well, he shouldn't have played him last week.
Right. Yes. Tim in Denver, Colorado. What do you guys think about Mark Andrews being a good pivot for the Ravens in the PC2? Thank you. That is Tim in Denver, Colorado. Mark Andrews, Ferrell. This is interesting. I think if you think the Ravens are going to lose this game, which you have already said, you and I don't believe that that's going to happen. But if it does happen, what about Mark Andrews as a pivot? The chat room was just talking about Zay Flowers, listed as doubtful, probably not playing. Mark Andrews gets a little bit more interesting then if you believe the Ravens are losing and Zay Flowers doesn't play.
Okay. You have to have Andrews in touchdowns. You'd have to have Likely all over the field if you played Likely. I think our friend's thinking a little too hard there, but he might be playing four teams. And if you're playing four teams, we can get Andrews on the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no limit to how many teams you can play.
Well, there is. There is. Yeah. I'd have to look it up.
200.
I think it's 150, but I'd have to look it up just to double check. But I'm pretty sure it's 150.
Yeah, Mike, Mr. Quinsell, you should call me 5 minutes after the show concludes.
Yes. Okay, let's go to who is next here. Is this Terry's email that I have? Oh yeah, Terry in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Is Isaiah Pacheco in the playoff challenge to getting quote too cute? That is Terry in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Thank you for the email, Terry. That it is cute to put Pacheco in. Is it going to pay off, Ferrell, if you do it? Because that means no Xavier Worthy, no Patrick Mahomes, and no Travis Kelce.
Yeah. It's let's don't go to Kansas City looking for a running back situation in this contest. Let's just don't do it.
Stay away from Pacheco. Stay away from Kareem Hunt. It's got to be Kelce.
This is just,
what about Worthy?
Well, you're counting on big plays not only this weekend but through the entire Super Bowl, and so it's hard for it's hard for any player, but especially a young player to keep hitting grand slams against the better defenses in the league. So, that is his style of play, and but he's a fantastic player, and there's no reason that on a week-to-week basis that he can be competitive as any other wide receiver for average scoring. But I haven't made my mind up of what chief I'm playing yet. So perhaps we ought to throw that to our talented crew in the chat room.
Yeah. Well, let us know it. Let us know in the chat and figure and help us out. Which chief needs to be the one that you play in this competition? Obviously, if Ferrell, if you're predicting a Chiefs Super Bowl appearance, is Mahomes the guy over Kelce?
Well, no, because I do believe the Chiefs are still in the AFC, and as you recall, Balky,
Baltimore.
we are
Yep.
the Detroits and the Baltimores.
Yeah, you're right. You are right. Permar 99 says easy. It's Kelsey. For the Chiefs.
I would have to agree with Permar.
Yeah,
I would have to agree with Permar. This is the situation where you would expect Kelsey to stand up and lead this team in so many ways.
We'll get to Jarell here in just a second. One more.
We are?
Yes, we are. 1 second. Here we go. This is Christian in Wilmington, Mass. Yeah. If I think Philly gets by Detroit, is Jalen Hurts a strong play? Keep up the great work. Christian in Wilmington, Massachusetts. Ferrell, I think we were both on the Lions to get to the Super Bowl, but if the Eagles do make it there, how would you feel about Jalen Hurts as your quarterback over, Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, Allen, all those guys? What about him instead of Barkley, A.J. Brown?
Oh, I would say you have absolutely half of what you need because you have the starting quarterback in the Super Bowl, which is what you want.
Yeah.
So and you can have another. He's got Philadelphia beating Detroit. So who is his AFC player? Maybe since he didn't go Lamar Jackson, maybe he went Derrick Henry. Would Hurts and Henry upset you in the Super Bowl, Balky?
It wouldn't upset me. I'd
No,
be fine.
Would you feel pretty good about your chances of scoring a touchdown? How chalky is the Derrick Henry to score an anytime touchdown this weekend? I mean,
it's super chalky. That was bad. That's you. Yeah, I mean, like it's one of those things. It's like you need to take out a loan to afford it, and then
win $100. You have
to win one payment on that payment back on the loan. It's ridiculous. Really ridiculous.
They're already like giving him a touchdown before he gets out of the bus. So
right. Let's go with one more here as long as they're coming in. Who is this? Ed in Columbus. Oh yeah, Ed in Columbus. Guys, Commander's question for you. Zach Ertz or Austin Eckler? I'm trying to stay away from McLaurin. That is Ed in Columbus. What do you think about that?
Ed.
Eckler and Ertz, obviously tight end premium, I think is interesting. But Eckler has been playing well, and he's going to catch passes in a game where the total is 55.5.
Yeah, he gets to play on that carpet too, and I like that. And Ertz means that you're giving up a lot of tight ends going forward. And perhaps we should talk. We've talked about Kelsey being an ideal tight end. I've been so pleased with Ertz this year. See, that's what happened in the regular season, clouding my mind because I adopted some dynasty teams, which I would tell everyone to do. Choose a team that someone else has thrown away in the FFPC. And I adopted some of those teams. Most of them were light at tight end. So I picked up Ertz for all of them. And, I didn't expect to get what I got out of him this year. And but so with all that said, I'm going Austin Eckler.
You're going Austin Eckler. Okay.
Yeah, for that question, I'm gonna put Austin Eckler, and I'm gonna try to get one game out of my second running back. Right?
Well, he could be a flex too. You know what I mean?
We're going to flex with wide resivers. There's too much passing talent to flex, and that's a question that's a question I would throw out into the room is who in the hell wants to play three running backs in this setup? It doesn't make any sense at all. But I want a tight end with the premium scoring to carry me through this. So.
What could you make a case for multiple tight ends in this playoff challenge too? I mean, obviously, Kelsey is going to be a big one, but you have Mark Andrews, you have Sam Laporta, Dallas Goedert. I think could enter the conversation as well as a leverage play, or not a leverage play, but a pivot off of Barkley.
If you do, they need to come from the same conference where you can get a great one to hey, Jimmy Williams here, where you can get a great one to go forward into your Super Bowl. And so That would be my thought.
My thought is we're going to try to throw it to Jarell for the runner-up in the Fantasy Pros Championship right now. I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to throw him on. Jarell, we can't see you, but we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Excellent.
Hey!
We got him. All right. Perfect. I apologize. I don't know the issues we're having with StreamYard tonight. This does happen from time to time, but I'm glad we have you on the show tonight. Once again, as a reminder to the viewers/listeners, this is a guy 5 months ago had never played in the FFPC before, and now 19 weeks later, he's won $200,000, coming just points away from $1 million grand prize. This is exciting, man. We're going to talk so much fantasy football with you. Before we get to that, what are you doing for a living when you're not crushing the Fantasy Pros Championship?
I hope you guys can hear me, man. First of all, I want to say I am so grateful to be on the platform. I don't even do live streams or anything like that. I love this, man. I love this platform, honestly. But yeah, what I do, my name is Jarell. I'm a realtor. I do some financial services and pretty boring stuff, but I love football.
It sounds exciting. That's Jarell. This is Ferrell, or I guess tonight I should be Ferrell, where we can run. And it's important that all we're seeing from you is a black screen because we need to basically protect you. You're in the winter protection program because you've got guys looking at you that if they could stare at you long enough, you would see that green eye of envy staring right down at you. Because many of us, myself included, play multiple Fantasy Pros teams, and I just think it's so great. What I want to ask you, when did you play this team?
I bought this team September 2nd. We drafted.
Okay, so you got started late. What brought you to the FFPC? How did you discover it?
I was just getting ready for just to basically do the same leagues I do at home, mom and pop stuff, family and friends. And I was just loading up my weapons, learning, listening to podcasts and stuff. And
better late than never, man. I mean, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, the $1 million, I mean, they hooked me. I was like, wait, you can win $1 million?
You can win $1 million, and
my second thought was, I am going to win it.
Well, I love that attitude, and how exciting! There's your first year and first team in the league. How exciting! I mean, how did you spend week 17? What was that like?
I haven't slept for 3 weeks. I didn't sleep week 15, and I damn sure didn't sleep after I scored the 224 points. So I've just been up, man. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. It's kind of even kill though, because I was right there. I wanted the million, but I try to beat myself up on what I could have did and what couldn't have done, but you can't do that.
You should beat yourself up, Jarell.
It does work. I was moping around the holiday party. Everybody's like, "What are you doing, bro? You just won 200,000." I was sick, man. I was devastated.
Well, how many points were you out of first?
I was about 21 points away, about 7 points per week average.
We have a guy here in Kentucky that lost out.
Or in Amon St. Round, more than 4-yard touchdown. Maybe like a 30-yarder would have done it.
We have a guy here in Kentucky that lost out on the championship one year, Trevor Holt, Balky. 2.38 of a point. And you just, if you can just if you say that number to Trevor anytime, he'll start,
I bet.
It's Balky, what have you got for Jarell?
So much of overthinking and thinking and effort and going with.
Hey, if you listen to this podcast, we'll cure you of overthinking both before, after, and during the show. There's no overthinking going on here.
Yeah, it's just like roulette. Once you place the bet,
What, Jarell, so you were at a holiday party during the 49ers Lions game on Monday night?
No, after Monday night.
No, Bucky, he was in mourning. He was going to the holiday party.
Okay.
He was walking around like he lost his best friend because he didn't win $1 million.
And everything. It's not watchable, man. There's no way you can sit and watch yourself in that type of setting. So
my father have an expression for you, Jarell. He'd say that you cannot stand prosperity. You just can't stand it. You just can't accept it at all.
I can accept it for sure. Like I said, I was devastated, but honestly, what cheered me up was seeing that Mike. I tuned in and you guys interviewed Mike. Just regular guy, was working and won it. I was like, yeah, that's the people who deserve to win it. The people that work for a living, It's like the lottery. Sometimes these people hit the lottery and they're already rich and like, what? But
everybody here works for a living except my good buddy Tom Smith.
But me for sure, I was definitely like, well, it's time to go back to work. I didn't get the
right.
I didn't get the whole thing.
So then that Monday night after the game was over, were you? I mean, you're sick, you're disappointed, you're wired. It was a rough night of sleep that night too. It was not something you just turn off.
I slept probably last week for the first time.
Gosh.
When I found out the money was actually hitting my account.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It was still a dream.
Yeah, I can go to sleep now. But honestly, man, shout out to everybody because honestly, just whether I won, everybody was telling me, man, whether you won, 1,500 or the million, bro, you did really good, man. You really killed it. So, I've been kind of taking that in. So it's been good, man.
Jarell, the thing about having just one team in this, obviously you're able to baby that team. You're able to follow it, give it all the proper attention it needs throughout the season. Coming into the championship round, I know you were well out of the top 100 spots. At what point? I mean, I guess like you look at the 224 in week 15. Did you start believing that it was real then, or did you already have an inkling before that?
Honestly, the T. Higgins game, the Joe Burrow and T. Higgins game, that's when I knew I was going to get some serious money. That's when I put my sights on the first round, because if you go back to that game, Burrow had all the touchdowns went to T. Higgins except the one that he actually ran in. So those two were the only two that, I got 81 points from that game alone.
That's sweet. That's a number you'll never forget.
Right.
I'm going to combine two of my questions.
I'm going to get some kind of, monetary value from this at this point, because they're, but I went into the draft with that mindset that Joe Burrow was going to be the.
Had you already won your 12-team league? Was he a league?
I lost my 12-team league. I lost in the championship game. Guy had scored 200 on me. I scored about 155.
And that guy,
took the championship. So I was in going into the tournament. I was at 172nd place.
I love that. So you look back on your draft. There's a guy that maybe there was your favorite player that you had all year that helped you with this team, and then after you walked away from the draft, you had never done this before. What did you think? You guys say, well, drafting against these guys, it's easy. I like my players. I like my team. What were some of your early thoughts and impressions about being part of the FFPC before you became such a big winner?
I always wanted to win it, man. I didn't think twice about it. I've been doing some traveling and stuff. That's why I hadn't got a chance to really hawk the waiver wires like I normally do in leagues and teams and stuff. But my whole mindset is you can win in the draft. You can win during the draft. And with so much money on the line, if you look back at the roster, I went with the Amon-Ra St. Brown, Derrick Henry, Mike Evans, not maybe the sexiest players going into the draft, but I was trying to get a floor of safety was the premise of my draft, and I just felt with so much money on the line, I can get in a $10 league if I want Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or all these superstar players that you want to get a share of. Sometimes you have to do that in your cheaper leagues, and for the money, I was just like, I got to do this safe. I'm on Ron St. Brown.
When you come to the KFFSC and play here in Louisville, before you come to the FFPC and play, because you'll want to do both those events live this year, one of your Kentucky team names must be $10 Jackson. That's what I'm going with. $10 Jackson is
$10 Jackson. Okay.
$10 Jackson is a team name for you.
I love it, and it makes perfect sense. I'm just looking. I got your team in front of me here, Jarell, and Devontae Adams in the third round. We talked about the Higgins and Burrow picks, and Njoku, Swift, Freiermuth. You got Chuba Hubbard in the 10th round, Jerry Jeudy in the 12th. Was there a particular, any of those guys that you were particularly proud of? Like when you made the pick, you're like, oh man, I'm so glad this guy fell to me. I was targeting him and it worked out and I got him. Was there anybody that you felt like that during the draft that you can recall? I know it was like 5 months ago, but still.
Yeah, Chuba Hubbard is, I thought he was a superstar of this season. All these players will get you to a point and drop you off, but I think he did his job as far as getting the wins early on in the season, and nobody thought he'd be a WR. He probably finished somewhere at running back 15 or something, but nobody thought he'd even be that high to get 9th and 10th. But I just thought Panthers would be so bad. He'd be all over the field, and he was. So that's my best pick, I think.
Not only did he drop you off, he walked you to the door, he tucked you into bed, and he set your alarm for the next day. I mean, it was fantastic.
That's okay. That's what they do, man. That's what you got to realize. There's some players that's meant to drop you off, and there's some players that will take you all the way. But you gotta drop them off. Honestly, I think that's why I lost. I wasn't ready to. I didn't drop off Aubrey, and I see Mike had 2 kickers. I didn't even know you could draft 4 defenses. So
I don't think he drafted 4. I think what he did, and I'd have to look back on this, but I think what he did, and I've seen this done before. I used to think like, okay, this is Bush League, and now I've come up 180 on this. When he knew if any of his guys were going to go down in the championship round, he's not winning the $1 million. So what he did was he dropped off the guys off his roster that he knew he wasn't going to play, or if he had to play him, he knew it was already over. And then he just kind of played defense, not defense roulette, but he exploited defenses the best way he could. So before that championship round, he made sure he loaded up and had.
That's exactly what I would do. If I could go back, I'd have 4 defenses and 2 kickers.
Yeah. If you went back, let me tell you something. If you went back, I think you would not want to change a thing. And we're going to have to disabuse you from the notion that you lost something. That's what.
Yeah,
we've only got a few minutes left to do.
I know.
We're going back to the holiday party, and we're going to break out the bourbon and disabuse you of the fact that you lost something.
I just had a nice old fashioned myself at a Komodo here in Dallas.
That's a good way to drink them.
Yes.
Yes.
Man, but yeah, everybody's saying that too. You won, man. You didn't lose. You didn't lose 800,000.
Well, I don't know if you can see us right now, but I have never laughed as much on the show in my entire life. This is
it's really incredible. Again, this is you have a bunch of people watching us on YouTube and Facebook and X right now that have been grinding for years, and then you come in with your first ever team and finish 2nd overall. And it's
beginner's luck is real. It is. I'm not a beginner, but this is my first time in this type of
right in the FFPC. How long you been playing fantasy football?
Oh man, 15, 20 years.
There you go. So you know exactly what's going on. We do have a question in the YouTube chat right now from Michael Kinzel. He wants to know if you're going to keep the same draft approach for 2025 that you had for this draft?
Oh, this is the money approach. The last time I did this strategy, I went 15-0 in the ESPN league.
Mm-hmm.
This was 2020, so I went 15-0, won a $5,000 pot, and scored the most points in a game, 296 points. And
wow.
Just destroyed the league. No, this is a strategy for sure, and I'll talk more about it whenever y'all want or whatever.
Well, yeah, let's talk about it right now. Is the strategy just to kind of load up on these target heavy pass catchers early and then kind of attack running back in the middle? What was your strategy?
It's a type of strategy. I will elaborate more. I have some content coming out that I want to share with a few people, but it's basically premises that a lot of people that know fantasy football, they do, like don't pick a quarterback in the first round or stuff like that. Right. So it was just basically me taking a safe floor, but me building my team building the core players first, and then going for quarterback and tight end. And so that's pretty much my strategy. Pick a team first, finish off with your tight end and quarterback.
Yeah, and leading into round 6, which is when you took your first tight end and David Njoku, you already had 4 receivers and you had King Henry as well. That is a nice high floor that you had built for yourself already there.
Yes. Yes.
And then obviously Burrow in the 8th, Freiermuth in the 9th, those paid off as well. And then getting Swift had a really good year too. That was your 7th round pick, and we already talked about
another player that you got to think, hey, these guys will get you there. They'll get you close enough. They're the workers. They're like the pawns. They work a couple of the weeks, have some great finishes, but towards the end of the season, they'll be looking to drop you off.
Right.
So I benched him. Even Judy, though, that went spectacular. Actually, I would have gained 2 points putting Judy in over T. Higgins that 1 week. But, I put him as a player, too, that's good enough, but will drop you off in the championship. So he sat the bench the whole time.
Right. Compared to your other leagues that you're in, Jarell, that you play, given that this was your first FFPC draft, how would you, obviously tight end premium scoring makes a difference, but how would you compare the draft experience and building a team in this FFPC format compared to some of the other leagues?
So much funner. The guys I usually play with, they BS. They pick a quarterback in the first round. This was so serious, so much more professional, just exactly like how you mock and stuff. And so I like that, man. I got tired of my leagues. They just, they're not serious enough. And I'm like, and this is for money. Well, that's,
You have moved off the checkerboard and onto the chessboard. You're playing against the masters here.
And that's how I set out. I said, hey, let me see how I do up against the big boys.
There already appears to be a groundswell of protest that just inviting you into the league has some people here in Kentucky already complaining, including Jimmy Williams.
I'll give y'all another secret. I have a limited budget, so what I do
no, you don't, sir. I'm going to point out to you something. Again,
what I do is
we're going to return.
I'll have a no BS draft like the FFPC, the serious for the marbles. And then when I want a share of a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson, I'll get in a $10 league to scratch that itch.
$10 Jackson, there he is again. $10
Jackson. I can't get, But I will say I'm glad I drafted who I drafted because Dalton Kincaid. I had my eye on some other players, and they just really tanked.
I have a question for you on your limited budget. And it comes down to financial. It's a prying question. Usually Balky asks it, but I'm gonna ask it tonight. And I'm going to point out to you that I know what you're not going to be doing with the money, because you're a smart enough gentleman to live in the great state of Texas, where you do not pay state income tax. So congratulations for that. I think you should invest all your tax savings in a return to the FFPC and save a little bit for Kentucky too. But in the meantime, What are you going to do with the rest of it?
I have decided to pay down debts and honestly invest the entire sum of it. I'm going to live off of the 200,000. So if you think conservative investments between 10 and 12%, that's about 20 grand. So 20 grand a year is about what? 1,800, $2,000 a month. Yeah. On top of my other income, I think I'll be okay with that.
Well, I think you will be okay. It will not pay Balky's bar bill, but it will be okay. You can make it work.
Definitely want to get a drink with all of you guys, even Mike, man, because he I just went back and looked at his team. I mean, you could tell he had the experience over me. That's where I just kind of broke down at the end. You could tell it just he knew he had been here before. So
well, don't worry, you're likely to win next year. I'm now joining you in this.
Even the one under the 75 grand, it's man, just everybody who placed, I would say top 300, hats off, because it's
yes,
it worked. I got lucky. I saw the one game Terry McLaurin only had a point. I was like, oh my God, this is really working out this time.
Well, it
never happens. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those games, man. It happens. It happens. But I used this specific strategy, and I'll be using it again next year.
Well, I can tell you at a minimum, Jarell, Mike, Melberg, Ferrell, and I will all be at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas for the FFPC live event. So we'd love to see you there. Yeah, that'll be fantastic for sure.
Okay. Cool.
Now we will continue to follow you on the X at Jarell F, JARELLF. You said you were going to be releasing some fantasy football content.
Yes. I have an ebook coming out, just going through the whole ups and downs of the tournament itself. How you want to look at it, how I won 200,000 or how I lost 800,000. It's all going to be in there, and the strategy. And I have another project I'm working on that kind of combines the financial money management part of what we do in financial fantasy football. So it's mixing finance with fantasy football. It's a small project coming out. It's going to be on my website, levelup.football. Levelup.football.
Levelup.football.
Yeah, levelup.
So we'll obviously be checking that out. All updates, I'm assuming, for levelup.football is going to be posted on your X feed at Jarell F.
I'm going to try to capture y'all's email address, maybe do half off for the early supporters. The book will come out in May 25th. And small, it's no secrets or anything like that. It'll help people if you've never done it before. And the people that know everything about fantasy football, you guys will look at it and say, oh yeah, makes sense. So
I think what's number one, I think it's tremendous that you're putting that out there. Number two, I think this is great for anybody who has never played in a high stakes league before in the FFPC or what have you, that now could read the story of the guy who joined a league, who's been playing fantasy football for years, joins his first FFPC
regular
league.
DGen. I set my lineups. I wake up at 2:30 in the morning to see if they went through. Real. You know who you are.
Right? Exactly. And
I'm one of you guys.
and yes, you are for sure. Jarell, we are out of time, but this has been so much fun talking with you tonight.
Man. A pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. At Jarell F on X, levelup.football will be following that as well. The guy who turned his first FFPC team into 200 grand. What a story. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Jarell.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
See you, Jarell.
Yep, we'll see you. Thank you so much. Jarell Ford, ladies and gentlemen, the runner-up. $200,000 winner in the FantasyPros Championship. I love this, Ferrell. I mean, I love creating content, but I love consuming content too. And for anybody out there who, is watching this and doesn't think that, they could make the leap. And Alex and Dave say this all the time. I know you said it too. The step you make from your home league, your family league, your office league, to KFFSC, to FFPC, it is a very small step. It is highly overrated to say that you are, all of a sudden in this massive 3D chess game. No, you're just with 11 other people who love playing fantasy football, and let the chips fall where they may. It's a lot of fun.
And if you find a talented football fan that understands the game and they look at you and say, I've never played fantasy football, they have a chance to really come in and do well in this, because they can apply themselves in the same way that Mr. Ford described it. It's so competitive, so that brings out their natural competition. There's no foolishness. There's nothing. We've had guys that have told me, I've never played fantasy football before. And I said, well, that means you don't have any junk in your head. You're ready to come and evaluate and get after it. And another chance. Mr. Ford allowed me just another chance to take a whack at the Joes. I'm sorry, at the pros from Pros versus Joes. I said he puts together his lineup and then he drafts a quarterback and tight end. And every pro that we talked to during the Pros versus Joes would tell you that's not going to work. I just love that so much.
I think that the story we had on the show tonight with Jarell Ford is so incredible. The fact that we had the $1 million winner from little old Appleton, Wisconsin, and then the runner-up with his first ever FFPC entry. I mean, you just can't write stuff like this. It's tremendous, and I'm so glad we had him on. Ferrell, in the meantime, as we sign off for tonight, I want to point everybody to KFFSC.com. Now, as far as all the live events for the Super Sunday competition in Louisville, those are all sold out, correct?
We have 2 spots left on Saturday, plus we have a big payback. We have 3 spots of big payback left on Sunday. So if someone wants to come live, they certainly we can accommodate you in 3 events. Now, we have a online available on the night of February 18th, which I believe we have several openings in that they'll fill pretty fast, and then that will complete it. It's a 96 team league with a chance to win $10,000 overall grand prize and a chance to be in your divisional champion to win $1,000. And it's a great contest. And the big payback, the grand prize of $5,000, a $1,000 buy-in, and a chance for a dominant team to win as much as $9,000. And hats off to Rob Fetcher, who won the overall championship in the Sweet 16, and $7,000 in the big payback this year for a $17,000 Super Bowl weekend last weekend.
Go get him, Fetch.
Yeah, and so Fetch was our last champion. He joins Stacy Perez and James Bednar and Doc Hutcherson as champions, and we look for our next champion this year.
If you want to get in that February 18th draft, KFFSC.com. If you want to get involved in the big payback spots that are open, KFFSC.com, and hang out in Louisville for the Super Bowl at Caesars Southern Indiana to watch it there. It's going to be tremendous for sure. Ferrell, thank you so much. Again, so much fun with you tonight. It always is. Let's do this again 6 days and 23 hours from now.
Very good. And hey, maybe next time we have Jarell on, he'll reveal his true personality.
Oh, that would be great. That would be fantastic. Be good, dude. Enjoy the games this weekend, man.
See ya.
Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, signing off tonight. I want to thank him. I want to thank Jarell Ford, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you for watching. We will be back, as I stated, 10 p.m. Eastern time next week for an all-new high-stakes fantasy football hour as we get set for conference championship weekend. In case you missed the season 9 finale of the RotoViz high-stakes lowdown on Tuesday night, you can watch that back on any of the FFPC socials, as well as the RotoViz podcast feed. 162-time FFPC league champion Daniel Priestner joined me. Dan has been on with me before. Really, really bright mind when it comes to managing a lot of teams, managing one team. Got a lot of feedback from him on how he's attacking this playoff challenge 2 competition this weekend. And you won't believe which Texan he keeps coming back to over and over again as he builds his lineups. The lowdown will now go monthly up until September. So we will be producing a new RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown each and every Tuesday, the first Tuesday of every single month. So we will return for the season 10 premiere, 10 p.m. Tuesday, February 4th. Watch Thursday night's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network with Fantasy Points' Chris Wecht. Chris Wecht wrote a very extensive piece on the world famous FFPC Playoff Challenge. Wanted to have him on to get his take on the Playoff Challenge too. We spent I don't know, an hour 40 out of that 2 hours putting together lineups, talking about lineups, and trying to figure out what the optimal one was going to be. Watch that back on the Better Sports Network or any of the FFPC socials as well. We will be back next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern with Yahoo Sports. Scott Pianowski, he and I will chop it up for 2 hours to get you set for FFPC drafts, which are coming up fast and furious here, as well as Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship drafts as well. Join the FFPC Playoff Challenge too. 2 great contests, same awesome format, no draft, no salary cap. Assemble the 8 players that you want for the remainder of the FFPC playoff, of the NFL playoffs, and whoever scores the most points will win a $100,000 grand prize. If you're entering for $200, if you're entering for $35, you can win up to a $25,000 grand prize. Remember, the $200 one is still yet to be half full. So there's going to be some really good opportunity to win some big time cash in that. If you want to sign up tonight or tomorrow morning, get those lineups in because they will close at 4:30 Eastern time tomorrow when the Texans and Chiefs get underway. Don't forget to go to myffpc.com/dynasty. We have a ton of dynasty orphans out there, many of them with reduced prices. Pick some squads up, carry them to fantasy glory in 2025. Expand your territory with FFPC Dynasty Leagues, myffpc.com/dynasty. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be next Thursday at 7 p.m. on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show with Scott Pianowski from Yahoo. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the games this weekend, everybody. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Just wanted to take a moment here as we close out the show. I'm wearing my Brewers hat in honor of the incomparable, special, one-of-a-kind Bob Uecker, who passed away on the evening of Wednesday or early Thursday morning, I believe, at the age of 90. This was a guy who, even if you weren't a Brewers fan, the guy who's been the voice of the Brewers for 40-some years, a guy you knew from the Major League movies as Harry Doyle, a guy who played George on Mr. Belvedere, the head of the family on that show, a guy who, I don't know, was on hundreds of Johnny Carson Tonight Show appearances, had a ton there. The Miller Lite commercials that he made with John Madden, 70s and 80s. Truly a special guy. And I've spent some time on YouTube the last couple of days listening to people and listening to local sports radio here in Wisconsin of people telling all these great Bob Uecker stories, and just a tremendous person. It's really sad that we will not have any new Bob Uecker stories going forward since he's left us. But a guy that was a big part of my childhood and a big part of my adulthood, and a guy who was a big part of everybody's lives in the summer here in Wisconsin for many years, no matter how old you were. I mean, he was the voice of the Brewers, been with them for forever. He's the only voice we know. And we will miss him. We will miss him dearly. I know even if you weren't a Brewers fan, certainly you probably enjoyed Bob Uecker, and we'll enjoy what he gave us while he was on this plane. And I know he's had an impact on me and the way I do my shows and how I talk to audiences and talk with audiences. Special person. And he passed away. So honor him. We will tonight. Rest in peace, Bob Uecker. Thanks so much for watching, everybody.